rumor is they are bringing back segregation. Let's take a look at the facts and effects of integration, especially for the ones who are too young to remember. After the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, Black Americans wasted no time in building self-sustaining communities. By the late 1860s and early 1870s, many formerly enslaved people had already established thriving black towns, despite facing extreme racism, economic sabotage, and violent opposition. During segregation, despite the systemic racism and oppression imposed by Jim Crow laws, the black community in America built strong, self-sufficient economic, educational, and social institutions. Black businesses, schools, and neighborhoods thrived because they had no choice but to rely on themselves. However, the forced integration that followed the civil rights movement had devastating consequences for black economic power, self-sufficiency, and cultural unity. The black community thrived during segregation by building black Wall Streets and thriving business districts. Cities like Tulsa's Greenwood District, Durham's Black Wall Street, Rosewood, Florida, Mound Bayou, Mississippi, Bronzeville, Chicago, Illinois, Haiti District, Durham, North Carolina, Sweet Auburn, Atlanta, Georgia, Parish Street, Durham, North Carolina, Idlewild, Michigan, 4th Avenue District, Birmingham, Alabama, and Jackson Ward in Richmond were bustling economic hubs filled with black-owned banks, grocery stores, hotels, theaters, and insurance companies. Because white businesses often refused to serve black customers, black entrepreneurs created their own ecosystems, ensuring that black dollars circulated within their own communities multiple times before leaving. They had strong black educational institutions, high schools like Booker T. Washington High School in Atlanta, Dunbar High School in D.C., Moton High School in Prince Edward County, Virginia, Phillips High School in Birmingham, Alabama, Orangeburg Wilkinson High School in South Carolina, produced some of the most well-educated black professionals in the country despite having fewer resources. Black teachers and principals were deeply invested in their students' success because they understood their struggles and aspirations. Black colleges were essential for higher education, as most white institutions refused to admit black students. Some of these HBCUs include Cheyney University of Pennsylvania, 1837, is the oldest HBCU, originally founded to educate free black people. Lincoln University, Pennsylvania, 1854, produced many black leaders, including Thurgood Marshall. Wilberforce University, Ohio, 1856, the first black-owned and operated university. Howard University, Washington, D.C., 1867, one of the most prestigious HBCUs known for law, medicine, and political science. Morehouse College, Georgia, 1867, an elite black men's college that educated Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Other HBCUs founded in the 1900s, while still segregated, include North Carolina Central University, 1910, known for law and education programs. Tennessee State University, 1912, a major land-grant institution. These institutions sustained black education during segregation and produced many leaders, professionals, and intellectuals. Black land ownership and farming communities. Many black families owned land and built self-sustaining farming communities, especially in the South. By 1910, black Americans owned 16 to 19 million acres of land, primarily in the South. By 1920, about 925,000 black farmers owned land. This was achieved despite obstacles like black codes, sharecropping exploitation, and racist banking practices that made it difficult for black farmers to secure loans. Black land ownership was concentrated in agricultural communities, and many black farmers were self-sufficient despite white supremacist terrorism through lynchings, land theft, and the destruction of black farms. Black landowners continued to produce wealth that could be passed down through generations. Cultural and social strength. Black families were tightly knit, with lower divorce rates and higher marriage rates than today. In the 1890s to 1950s, about 70 to 85% of black adults were married. From the 1940s to 1960s, the black marriage rate was higher than that of white Americans per capita. In 1950, 64% of black men and 62% of black women were married. The percentage of black children raised in two-parent households was over 80%. Even in the 1960s, the black marriage rate was still around 60 to 70%, but it began to decline after the civil rights era. Why was the black marriage rate so high? Because of cultural and religious values, the black church emphasized strong family structures. There was economic necessity. Families needed dual incomes to survive in a racially segregated economy. The strong community support, tight-knit black communities encouraged stable marriages. There was limited welfare dependency. Government programs did not yet create incentives for single-parent households. How integration crippled the black community. Once integration allowed black people to shop at white-owned stores, many black-owned businesses collapsed because their customer base left. Instead of investing in black businesses, many black consumers sought validation through white-owned brands, weakening black economic self-sufficiency. Large white-owned corporations took advantage of integration by opening locations in black neighborhoods, undercutting black-owned businesses that had sustained communities for decades. The loss of black educational institutions. Black schools, once run by passionate and culturally aware educators, were shut down in favor of integrating black students into white schools. Many black teachers and principals lost their jobs, and black students were placed in hostile environments where they faced racism from white teachers, administrators, and students. The psychological damage of being in predominantly white schools often left black children feeling isolated and undervalued, using urban renewal to destroy black neighborhoods. In the 1930s to 1950s, the New Deal and discriminatory USDA policies denied black farmers access to federal subsidies and loans, forcing many off their land. By 1969, black land ownership declined by nearly 90%, falling to 2 million acres. Under the guise of urban renewal, highways and infrastructure projects deliberately destroyed thriving black business districts. Government programs like redlining and predatory lending blocked black families from home ownership, which is a key driver of generational wealth. Public housing projects replaced self-sufficient black communities, creating cycles of poverty and dependence. The rise of mass incarceration and systemic dependency. As economic opportunities dwindled, crime increased, and instead of addressing poverty, the government responded with the war on drugs and mass incarceration, which disproportionately targeted black men. Welfare programs, while necessary for some, were weaponized to incentivize single motherhood by making benefits conditional on the absence of a father in the home, leading to the breakdown of the black family unit. From the 1970s to present day, the black marriage rate plummeted. By 2010, only 32% of black adults were married, while 70% of black children were born to unmarried parents, the dark reality of post-integration America. While civil rights victories gave black people access to certain spaces, they did not come with economic reparations or protection for black-owned institutions. Black wealth, which had been painstakingly built despite segregation, was stripped away, leaving generations trapped in economic disparity. Black dollars, once circulated in their own communities, were now spent elsewhere, enriching white businesses while leaving black businesses to die. Schools that once nurtured black excellence were replaced with institutions that marginalized black students. The destruction of strong black communities through urban renewal and economic policies left a vacuum that was filled with crime, drugs, and generational poverty. Integration did not mean equality. It meant assimilation into a system that was never designed to uplift black people. Instead of strengthening black institutions, it forced dependence on a society that continued to exploit and marginalize black communities. The harsh truth is that black America traded forced separation for systemic neglect, and the consequences are still felt today in wealth inequality, education gaps, and community disempowerment. Integration was never supposed to benefit the black community. It was a calculated and strategic move to maintain the white power structure. Until you understand the past, you will continue to repeat the same mistakes. In this book, How to Successfully Unalive the Negro Through Their Diet, the strategic manipulations that have tricked you from being landowners to renters, from business owners to employees have been exposed. It's your responsibility to understand the tricks that have been in play against you for centuries so that future generations don't repeat the same mistakes. Grab your copy today. Available in ebook and paperback now on Amazon. Please be sure to like, share, and follow for more.